All right, what is going on, everybody? Before we dive in, do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button down below for @BrandTechOff. Okay, let's get right to it. Is it really over for DeepSeek? Seriously? The AI world just got a massive, massive shakeup. A brand new model has just dropped, and it's not just challenging the top open source players. No, it's making everyone wonder if the reign of the big, established giants is about to come to a screeching halt. That's right, the crown has officially been passed. There's a new contender in town called GLM-4.7. And get this, it hasn't just dethroned top-tier open-source models like DeepSeek. Nope. It's now powerful enough to actually step into the ring with the closed-source heavyweights. We are talking about a model that can genuinely go toe-to-toe with some of the biggest, most expensive names in the industry. So, let's properly introduce this new king. GLM-4.7 comes to us from Z.ai, a company that's been on the quest for AGI, or Artificial General Intelligence. They actually just went public on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and, well, their new flagship model is making some serious waves. So what's the secret sauce here? What's going on under the hood? How can an open source model possibly compete at this level and, in some cases, even smoke the competition? Well, it all boils down to a super clever architecture and some really innovative ways of thinking. Okay, so the core tech is something called Mixture of Experts, or MOE for short. Now, think of it like this. Imagine you have a giant team of super specialists. Instead of making the entire team solve every single little problem, you just call on the handful of experts who are perfectly suited for that one specific task. This makes the model both insanely knowledgeable and incredibly efficient at the same time. And this slide right here, it illustrates that idea perfectly. The model has this huge library of knowledge, 355 billion parameters worth. But for any single task you give it, it only needs to activate a lean, mean 32 billion of those. So you get all the power of a frontier-level model without that massive computational cost every single time you ask it a question. It's the best of both worlds. But here's where things get really cool. This is probably the model's biggest innovation. It's thinking architecture. First, it uses something called interleaved thinking, which just means it plans out its steps before it acts. That alone cuts down on errors like you wouldn't believe. Second, it has preserved thinking, which is like a long-term memory. It remembers the why behind its decisions across long coding sessions. And finally, turn-level thinking is basically an efficiency switch. It saves the deep, heavy thinking for the hard problems. You put these three together and you solve some of the biggest frustrations developers have with AI coding assistants today. Okay, enough talk. The demos are impressive, for sure, but the hard data is what tells the real story. So let's dive into the benchmark showdown and see how GLM 4.7 actually stacks up head-to-head against the reigning champs. And wow, the numbers really do speak for themselves. I mean, look at SWE-bench. It's a tight race, a real nail-biter there. But then look everywhere else. GLM 4.7 pulls ahead on the T-bench, which is all about how well it can use other software tools, and it just crushes it in live coding scenarios. It's not just keeping up anymore, it is leading the pack in the areas that really matter for developers. Let's just zoom in on one of those for a second, because this is kind of a big deal. On the live code bench, which tests its real-world coding skills, GLM 4.7 scores almost 85%. That leaves a huge competitor like Claude Sonnet 4.5 way behind at 64%. That is not a small gap, people. That's a massive performance difference on a critical skill. But, its power goes way beyond just acing tests. In real-world demos, GLM 4.7 has pulled off some absolutely incredible feats of what we call agentic coding, basically acting like an autonomous developer to build stuff from scratch. It built a whole Android OS simulation. It created a playable Fruit Ninja clone using a webcam, and it even built a multi-track video editor, a task where so many other top models have just completely fallen flat. The creators also have this cool concept they're calling vibe coding. And the idea is pretty simple. The model doesn't just write code that works, it writes code that looks good. It has a built-in aesthetic sense, so it generates cleaner, more modern UIs and presentations that don't need a ton of manual tweaking afterward. It just has good taste. So the benchmarks are killer, and the demos are honestly mind-blowing. But what does all this mean for the day-to-day grind of a real developer? Does it actually hold up? Let's see what the community has to say. This quote from a developer on Reddit just sums it all up perfectly. A lot of people went in with low expectations, right? We're all used to open source models that just make stuff up or spit out broken code. But people were genuinely shocked to find that GLM 4.7 just works. It consistently delivers stable, functional code. And this slide right here perfectly illustrates that practical difference. Someone ran a head-to-head test to build a full app. GLM 4.7 had a working version in just 11 minutes and nailed all the integrations. Meanwhile, the much more expensive Claude Opus, it couldn't even set up the integrations. It hit its usage limits and just failed to finish the project. That's a night and day difference. And here's the kicker. This is the crucial point. You get all of this power, the benchmark-crushing performance, the real-world reliability, the advanced thinking, for about 1/7 of the price of the big proprietary models. And you often get a way higher usage quota too. It's a no-brainer. Okay, let's zoom out for our final section here and look at the bigger picture. Because a model like GLM 4.7 dropping isn't just another small update. It really signals a fundamental shift in the entire AI landscape. So when you put it all together, there are 3 huge takeaways. First, this democratizes power. Top-tier AI is no longer locked behind a giant paywall. Second, it solves a massive headache for businesses: data privacy. Companies can now run this on their own servers, keeping all their sensitive code and data in-house. And finally, this is just definitive proof that the gap between the expensive elite models and the powerful open-source alternatives is closing. And it's closing faster than anyone expected. All of this leaves us with a really fascinating question for the future, doesn't it? As we watch open-source AI catch up to, and in some cases, blow past, the biggest names in the game, you really have to wonder, who's going to build the future of this tech? Is it going to be a few giant corporations, or is it going to be a global community of developers and innovators with open access to tools as powerful as this one? The game has well and truly changed.